Welcome to the disturbance. What? Alright, hey, honey, I'm in the middle of doing a voiceover on Fiverr for one of those earthlings that does something called a podcast. Alright, I'll take out the trash when I'm done. Welcome to the disturbance, hosted by Dave DeVaugh.
Coming up on The Disturbance, I go ahead and preview the NFC South, which is really one of the most intriguing divisions in the entire league this year. Look, you've got Drew Brees, who almost retired. You've got Tom Brady, who probably should have retired, who's now a member of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he's brought along his buddy Gronk with him, if anything, for comedic support. Then you've got the Atlanta Falcons, who for some strange, bizarre reason decided to stick with Dan Quinn as their head coach. You're not going to like what I have to say about Todd Gurley and the Atlanta Falcons, I can tell you that. And then you've got the new king of motivational speakers, Matt Rhule, the new head coach of the Carolina Panthers. It is an extraordinarily intriguing division. Stay with me as I go ahead and preview this very fascinating NFC South. All of that, and as always, trust me, a whole lot more coming up on The Big Show today.
The Disturbance is broadcast live and on tape from the heart of the Silicon Valley. Now, to The Disturbance we go.
All right, if you're new to The Disturbance, please go ahead and subscribe to The Big Show. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and hit that big red button. If you're on any of the hundreds of podcast platforms that exist in this universe, hunt down the subscribe button at that specific platform that you're actually listening to this on. So for today's show, as we sort of dive into the National Football League's NFC South, and I give you sort of a preview as well as some opinions about the division as a whole, I thought we would sort of kick things off really quickly with the Atlanta Falcons. Now, this is going to be different than, other shows that are going to sit here and overanalyze every single position. We're not going to do that at all. But what I am going to cover is a couple of the bigger pieces that I think actually will be most impactful, or in the Atlanta Falcons case, less impactful than they would have hoped it would be. Now, you could start with Todd Gurley, who clearly, in my opinion, at this point is skiing down the backside of career mountain. Look, he averaged 3.8 yards a carry, which isn't horrific, but it's about a yard less than he did in previous years. He's obviously dealing with a wide variety of injuries. And when you look at running backs in the National Football League, Todd Gurley is entering his 6th season. The average running back lasts 4.5 years in the National Football League. And Todd Gurley might not be that different than the average running back. Sure, he's not an average running back, and he hasn't played like that throughout his career. But as age and as tread ends up on those tires, then you're going to see a loss of production. So for the Atlanta Falcons to believe that Todd Gurley is going to be the answer and is actually going to change things around for this organization, and to put so much on the shoulders of Todd Gurley to regain the way he looked during the first, 13, 14 games of the season that they went to the Super Bowl when he was a member of the Rams, is just idiotic. They also allowed their tight end to just go ahead and bail. I mean, just bail. He went to Cleveland, of all places. I mean, when you're thinking about a team, and you're thinking about a player, and you're Austin Hooper, and you've been to 2 Pro Bowls as a member of the Atlanta Falcons, and you can't get a new contract from the Falcons, so you split for Cleveland, I'm just saying there's a problem with the organization as a whole. Now, the offense has become extraordinarily predictable. I love Julio Jones as much as you do, and I know when you throw the ball up to Julio in the corner of the end zone, there's very few defenders that can actually stop him from catching a touchdown. But it's just that that's not every other play in the NFL. You have to figure out how to get into the red zone in the first place. So Atlanta is in desperate need of a strong running game. Their offensive line was making the opposite of the kinds of holes that you want to see from an offensive line. They were basically creating the kind of holes that benefit defenses, if you know what I mean. So a lot of work to be done there. It's not a knock on Dan Quinn, who I think is an excellent head coach. I think he's just at this point, they've tried so many different things with him as the leader. They've tried everything from him, having coordinators on the defensive offensive side, then to having Dan step in and be the defensive coordinator. They've tried everything with him as the head of this team. 7-9 the last 2 seasons. What? Is Arthur Blank sitting there going, I wonder if we can get the trifecta? Can we get 3 seasons in a row of 7-9? And when you look at this roster, Falcon fan, that is probably what you are ultimately facing in front of you. As much as I know you're going to hate hearing that, especially at the start of the National Football League season, that is sort of the harsh reality of where your team is at this point. The defense is middle of the road, and then the offense, as we've covered sort of extensively, is in need of some major overhauls and changes. I have the Falcons finishing 7-9 this year. To FanDuel we go. FanDuel has them winning 7.5 games in the upcoming season. All right, now we're going to get into New Orleans and we're going to get into Tampa Tom, because I know you all want to hear about those two, because those are the 2 teams in the division that you're probably wondering, will you predict either of these teams to actually have a shot at making the Super Bowl? Now, if you're new to the disturbance, that is what these preview shows are really about. They're sort of setting up the National Football League in a way where we're actually able to, at the end of, after we've covered all these divisions, we're going to take a look back, and there's going to be 2 or 3 teams from the AFC. There's going to be 2 or 3 teams from the NFC that heading into the start of the season, you can actually say have a legitimate chance based on their rosters and past performance of actually making a Super Bowl run. Whereas when you take a look at a team like the Carolina Panthers entering this season, you know, and I know, and Las Vegas knows that there's no way the Carolina Panthers are going to the Super Bowl this year. It's not going to happen. That doesn't mean I don't think Matt Rhule isn't going to do a good job with the Carolina Panthers. As much as I'm down on this Panther organization for the way they treated Cam Newton on his way out the door, I'm going to use an old term. They flat out jobbed Cam Newton, and they job blocked Cam Newton from having the ability to get another job in the National Football League, to the point where he basically is playing for free to play for Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. Look, I hope Cam has a hell of a season. I hope he has an absolute hell of a season and shows the Panthers that they maybe made some sort of mistake. That being said, the big news in Carolina is that they actually hired a coach in Matt Rhule, who is, how do I put this? A motivational speaker who happens to know X's and O's. That would be one of my best ways of describing Matt Rhule. If you haven't seen the Matt Rhule introductory press conference to the Carolina Panthers, you need to go back and watch it. It is literally one of the best motivational speeches I've seen in sports in 20 years. It is that good. Matt Rhule knows how to communicate with young football players. If there is a thing that you need to look for when you're hiring a head coach in the National Football League, if there's one thing that you need to have to be a successful head coach in the National Football League, it is the ability to communicate with the modern National Football League player. And I think on the surface, that is something that Matt Rhule has. It is definitely something that Freddie Kitchens wasn't able to figure out, not to mention his horrific inability to do press conferences with the members of the media, where he ends up looking like an idiot. And that affects his relationships with his players, because his players go back and they see this stuff. So when you hire a young coach, and the big thing has been, who's the next Sean McVay going to be? Is it going to be Zach Taylor in Cincinnati? It probably not. Is it going to be Matt Rhule? So Matt Rhule is a great motivator. I think it's a team that, even if it doesn't have a lot of talent, it's a team with a lot of unknowns. There are so many unknowns with this roster that anybody that actually can sit here and say that they're going to win more than 6 games this year, really 5 games, but 5 or 6 games this year, is probably doing something illegal at this point. Or I don't know, because there's just not enough on this roster to sort of justify that sort of prediction sort of heading into this season. Now, look, I like Teddy Bridgewater. He's a systems quarterback, and systems quarterbacks, are good, one game. They get figured out the next game. They're good another game. These 500 quarterbacks. So I think that the Carolina Panthers are looking at a season this year, and I'm going to be nice. I'm gonna come out and say that there is more value in what Matt Rhule does with his players, especially with a major sort of roster turnover that the Carolina Panthers have sort of put together during this particular offseason. And they certainly have some great young talent on this team. I mean, they have Christian McCaffrey on this team, right? And they've got some decent, wide receivers with some decent talent. And they did go out and steal Robbie Anderson from the New York Jets. So I'm going to confidently say that, and I'm going to preface this with the Carolina Panthers are going to win at least 6 games this year. 6-10 is the record. I wouldn't be surprised if they won 7, though. Anyways, so moving on to Tampa Tom and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Look, I'm not going to spend too much time on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? They've got Chris Godwin. They've got Justin Watson. They've got Mike Evans. they have just a slew. I mean, they went out and got LaShawn McCoy. Oh, like when I saw the LaShawn McCoy deal went down, I was like, forget about Rob Gronkowski. Forget about Tom Brady joining the team. They've got Shady McCoy. They're absolutely going to the Super Bowl now. You could hear the sarcasm in that. Look, talk about being at the end of his career. Is LaShawn McCoy. 400 yards. That is the number that I think you would be looking at from LaShawn McCoy this year, and you'd be happy with it. I'm sorry, but that is the number. They've got some other decent young running backs, so it will be running back by committee, which is fine as long as those running backs can actually catch the ball out of the backfield, which I'm sure they can do. Now, if Tom Brady is able to throw the ball consistently, 30 to 40 yards down the field consistently, then this is going to be a very good team. They've got a fantastic defense. They've got 4 of the best defensive linemen in the game today. they really do. I mean, they put some, huge numbers together last year. So this is a strong defense, assuming everybody can stay healthy. But do I think, and remember, this is the metric, do I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to the Super Bowl this year? And the answer is absolutely not. Do I think that Tampa will be in the playoffs this year? And the answer to that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a legitimate chance of making it into the playoffs. I'm saying that Tampa is going to finish the season 9-7 this year. I think, anybody else that goes too far beyond that is sort of off their rocker when you actually start to really do a deep dive on this roster and a deep dive on the rest of the division, and you analyze the teams that they're actually going to be playing this year. I'm just saying. Now, Vegas and FanDuel have 9.5 wins for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. this year. Sure, Tampa Tom is going to be fun and intriguing to watch. Sure, Rob Gronkowski is going to be great. He's comedic relief for Tom Brady. I can't wait. And I'm so intrigued by this Tampa Bay Buccaneer team. But I don't see them doing any long-term damage in the playoffs this year. I just don't think that they'll have enough. They've got a strong enough running game as it is today on paper. I'm not sure that offensive line is going to hold up. And Rob Gronkowski, as excited as I am to see him play, is really just a hit or two away from watching 4 games from the sidelines. That's where he's at in this stage of his career. Sure, it would be great. It would be awesome. It would be, Disney storytelling at its best if Tom Brady were to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers all the way to the Super Bowl and actually win it. Hell, Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So you think Tom Brady could? It's a different league today than back when Brad Johnson actually won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, moving on to the team voted by me most likely to have a shot at making it to the Super Bowl this year out of this particular division, and it is the New Orleans Saints. The Saints, it's a team with a great roster. Obviously, we know Drew Brees is coming back for yet another season. And when you take a look at the rest of this roster, you've got Taysom Hill as the backup, and the backup to the backup is Jameis Winston, who's the true backup, with Taysom Hill, who's going to play in a lot of key spots for the Saints in the upcoming season. It's a dual threat with a guy like Taysom Hill. So you've got that. You've got one of the, if not the best wide receiver in the NFC in Michael Thomas. You've got some other nice pieces at wide receiver as well. And you've got a really nice running game with Alvin Kamara. And then the backup is Latavius Murray. It's great. They got a guy that can go east and west and another guy that goes north and south. It's a strong running game that they have in New Orleans. They have one of the strongest defenses, and they've got a really fantastic offensive line. All arrows, if you will, point in the right direction for the New Orleans Saints. So I think that the Saints are going to finish this season with 10 wins and 6 losses. I am struggling to actually give the Saints the shot. I'm struggling to say that the Saints are going to be one of the 2 or 3 teams in the NFC that I think are actually going to have a legitimate chance of making it to the Super Bowl this year. I think they are near it, but not quite over the top yet. Now, when you look at everything and you look at everything on paper, they certainly look like they have everything that you need to sort of go over the top. But let me ask you this question. Patrick Mahomes is how old? And Tom Brady is how old? Lamar Jackson is how old? And Drew Brees is how old? At some point, the age of the quarterback, at some point that turns into an issue. As great as Drew Brees has been in the regular season, will he have enough left in the tank for them to actually run the table and make it all the way to the Super Bowl? And I just am struggling with that as something that I actually really believe this Saints team's going to do. And also, if you look at the Saints' recent history in playoff games, they've certainly sort of struggled to make it all the way through. So it's almost as if this team has gotten a little old before our eyes. It's not just Drew Brees, but some of the other key positions as well. So I'm sort of like, if there's a third, maybe a fourth team out of the NFC that I was going to say has a legitimate chance of making it to the Super Bowl this year, it would be the New Orleans Saints. That's where I have them. FanDuel. Let's see what FanDuel has. FanDuel has them at a 10.5 wins for this season. All right. So there you go. A pretty quick recap of the NFC South, sort of done in a very unique way, which is sort of how we do things here at The Disturbance. So thanks so much for tuning in. We're doing all of the other divisions as well, so be on the lookout for those. For The Disturbance, I'm Dave DeBaugh, reminding you that for more semi-witty sports commentary, check out mighty.rip.
Thank you for tuning in to The Disturbance, hosted by Dave DeBaugh. Please go ahead